Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will be joining us later on. His phone broke, and we're doing things a little bit earlier today, but it's okay. The title of this episode is A Fast Start, and speaking of that, the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com, and we are rejoined by very special guest from the Washington Times, Mr. Matthew Paris. Thank you so much for joining us on this Labor Day Monday. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I feel like it's been a minute, so thanks for having me again.
Yes, sir. And Paris, I got to get your opinion on this. What's the biggest storyline heading into week one? Washington is facing off against the Arizona Cardinals, who used to be in the NFC East, which we all know about if you're old enough to. But so what are the biggest storylines heading into this game?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. One, you got to start fast. It's an appropriate title of this episode because Arizona, by the look of it, is trying to tank in 2023. They've released Colt McCoy, don't know who their quarterback's going to be. That's kind of the big question on their end. And then for Washington, it's the health of guys like Terry McLaurin, Chase Young. We'll see where they're at. And to give you a third one here, the first game of the Josh Harris era. People are excited. They get pulled out. And so I'm really curious to see what that atmosphere is going to be like on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that they put the depth chart out, and I think that, if I'm correct, Sadiq Charles is the starting left guard, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so going into this Arizona game, like you said, it looks like they're trying to trade away some of their best pieces, minus Buda Baker, and kind of like actively tanking. But this should be a nice little kind of warm-up game for the offensive line to kind of gel and kind of hit the ground running. What do you see the offensive line performing like come this upcoming Sunday?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to focus on that interior. I think you start with Sadiq Charles there. It was a competition between him and Chris Paul, but it wasn't your true competition where the only time that Chris Paul really got reps with the ones is because Sadiq was hurt, and that's the story of Sadiq's career, right, is that he hasn't been able to stay on the field.
It's almost like the quarterback competition.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Rivera has his way of doing things where normally in a competition sense, he gives a lot to the guy that they think is going to win the job. So, when Chris Paul got in there, he played well, but I don't think he did anything to give coaches true consideration of making that switch. So you start with Sadiq Charles there. I think Sam Cosmi might be their best offensive lineman. His transition to guard has been really smooth this summer, has looked really stout and athletic on the inside. So it's an interesting group. I think Andrew Wiley's the big question mark on right tackle. They signed him to a lot of money, but he had kind of a shaky preseason. But that's what the preseason for, is to work out those reps. And now the real action starts, and all eyes will be on him and that unit.
Yeah, and you kind of talked about it in the biggest storylines heading into week one. So let's open that book up. Let's highlight some things there. Talk about Phidarian Mathis's injury being on short-term IR. How big of a concern is that for you? But also, do you expect Chase Young and Terry McLaurin to play in this football game?
Yeah, with Phidarian, we're not going to see him at least for 4 games. That's the minimum of 4 short-term IR. So it'll be a minute before he see him, and that's an unfortunate setback for him because, obviously he missed I think he played 3 snaps last year before he got hurt and had a season-ending injury. And so now they're counting on guys like John Ridgeway. They brought back Tyler Larson, who, add to the offensive line depth to be another center there. As for Chase Young and Terry McLaurin, we'll see. I mean, if you kind of listen to sports talk radio or you just read your replies, there's this belief that because Arizona is the way that they are, that you shouldn't play Terry McLaurin or Chase Young given that it's a winnable game. But I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, there are only 17 of these.
Right.
It's kind of in a big game to make a statement, even though it's Arizona. So if Chase Young is ready to go, I believe he'll play. Terry McLaurin's an interesting one because, one, they have a lot of depth at that position, and turf toe is always tricky to manage. But as of now, I mean, Chase Young has been practicing. He just hasn't been cleared for contact, so who knows what's going on there. And Terry McLaurin, yeah, we'll see whether he's at practice Wednesday. I think that'll be a big tell.
And then this one isn't an injury, but it is sort of off the field. Can you kind of explain in detail the Jamin Davis situation, the latest news regarding there? Do you expect him to be there week 1? I heard something about it being pushed to February.
Yeah, that actually was pushed to March.
March, sorry.
So no, it's all right. It's So yeah, the good news for him is that he doesn't have to go about the season worrying about his legal situation costing him games. Um, he was convicted originally to 30 days in jail, which is why he's appealing it. This legal situation that he has, he was caught speeding. Officials cited him going 114 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. So he caught himself in a bit of trouble. And now he has until March to work out basically a plea deal. Their sides wanted to get a deal done with the Commonwealth, but the Commonwealth, according to Davis's lawyer, didn't present a revised plea until an hour before their latest court date, so they need more time to work that out.
Okay.
Yeah, so with Davis, it's up in the air, but it shouldn't cost him any games going into 2023.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Hopefully he can play with just a free mind and a free conscience for the season and kind of put that stuff in the back of his mind and just worry about football and getting prepared every week. But obviously, as we know, the NFL is an offensive league, and with Eric Bieniemy coming here this offseason and the new quarterback in Sam Howell, there's been a lot of I guess you can call it hype around the offense and what they're going to look like come week 1 and how Sam Howell's going to look. What do you think that the game plan for this team is going to be come week 1 as far as like, do you think it's going to be, I guess, kind of like with Carson last year where they just came out throwing the ball over the field? Or do you think they're going to try to ease Sam Howell into the game and run the ball a lot with Robinson and Gibson and kind of just ease him into the game to get his feet wet?
I think it'll kind of lean more toward the first one, what you said. I don't necessarily think – I think there are big differences between this offense and the offense that Scott Turner ran last year. You think about that Jacksonville game. They really spread it all around deep. The thing that stands out about this one is this is something Jay Gruden actually used to talk about, and Jay Gruden and Eric Bieniemy both come from a West Coast background, is that you can use the quick passing game as kind of a supplemental to your run, that a 4 or 5 yard pass is kind of the same thing as a 4 or 5 yard run. And so I would expect a lot of quick throws for Sam Howell. That's something that we've talked about a lot this offseason with Bieniemy and Rivera, is how this quick passing game is designed to give a young quarterback kind of a break and to elevate his status a little more. And I think you'll see a lot of RPO stuff that Howell did in college to benefit that. That's Bieniemy's background as well. So even if Terry McLaurin isn't out there, I think there are things designed in this offense to really prop up Sam Howell, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, and you talked about the quick passing game and getting the ball out quick. Can you just speak to what Logan Thomas' status is? I think he said that he's all go for week 1, but also with the quick passing game, it kind of seems like Logan Thomas is going to be really active week 1 and really a part of this offense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that, especially because it felt like before Thomas got hurt, he was definitely more involved than he was last year. You know, the health of Logan Thomas has been the big question, and coaches have talked, you know, this calf injury that he missed time with in camp wasn't directly related to the torn ACL he suffered in 2021, but coaches believe that another year removed from that ACL injury will kind of bring back Thomas to where he was at in 2020, his career year. So you do look at how Kansas City used Travis Kelce and stuff in their offense with Bieniemy. Obviously, Logan Thomas isn't Travis Kelce, but I think there are still things schematically that they can do by, you know, having Logan Thomas be the lone threat on the one side and have 3 receivers on the other. Stuff like that. I think there's ways to scheme that up, and I think, yeah, Logan Thomas is going to be very important to their plans in 2023.
Yeah, now to wrap this up, Paris, I only have a couple more questions for you, but I think this is how this sort of thing is supposed to work. But off the record, have you heard anything in regards to Eric Bieniemy back at the Kansas City Chiefs? I heard a Kansas City fan say something about how Eric Bieniemy had called the plays in the second half of the Super Bowl. Have you heard anything like that?
Hey, sorry, you cut out there for like.
Yeah, I thought that was my computer.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
Just
Have you heard anything about Eric Bieniemy calling the plays in the second half of the Super Bowl?
oh, no, I haven't. That
Okay.
would be news to me.
Oh,
But
good. I just wanted to see if you heard anything about that. Now, the next question I have for you: this running back room, Eric Bieniemy, a former running back himself, one that gets the running backs very utilized in this passing game and offensively through the passing attack and obviously on the ground with some very detailed or unique runs. Do you expect this to be a running back by committee group?
I do. I it's interesting with committee because I don't know what Chris Rodriguez's role is going to be. I think he'll be a substitute here and there. But if you're just talking between Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, yeah, I think that's going to be closer to a true 50-50 split. I think it really helps that Brian Robinson has shown that he can catch passes now. He's added that element to his game. But the problem that Washington faced last year, and I wrote about this a few weeks ago, is that when Brian Robinson was in the game, generally a run. I think it was like 58% of his plays resulted in a run for Robinson. Gibson, it was a pass. 34% of his snaps, I think, resulted in a run when he was on the field when they were both healthy at the same time. So you look at how they're divided, and yeah, I think it's going to be a lot less predictable this season.
I hope so, with a good chef behind there, mixing those ingredients. Now let's do our predict. Let's put our hats on, our prediction hats, or tinfoil hats, if so be it. Who is an unsung hero you can look at and say that's going to be somebody we're going to be praising against the Cardinals?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not an unsung hero because it's going to be their first round pick, but man, I'm curious to what Emmanuel Forbes
Really?
does once the actual season starts. That guy's ability to read the ball is, I don't even necessarily think it'll result in necessarily turnovers, but in terms of just his anticipation, his pass breakups, it's been really kind of something to see in training camp. I thought he had a great preseason, and the guy can hit. I mean, for being 180 pounds and having that thin frame, he can really lay down the woods. So yeah, I think he's the guy that jumps to mind, even if he's not necessarily under the radar.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I said this a while back that I wouldn't expect Emmanuel Forbes to lead in interceptions, but I do in pass breakups. That
Yeah.
length, being able to collapse on the ball is really going to help him out. But in the NFL, it takes time, right, to be able to jump those routes. And I'm not sure if he's there yet, but I hope he gets it this weekend, Matt. Last question I have for you. What is the bare minimum point total that Washington has to score in order to put themselves, I would say, in a 75% win percentage guarantee sort of way?
Oh, against Arizona or like the
Yeah,
season?
just Arizona.
Arizona, 17 was their range last year where it was like, you know,
Right.
you need to score more than 17 points to win in the NFL these days. So I'd say 24, 3 touchdowns, a field goal. If you can stay in that range, I think that's a good pace for them if they can control time of possession. I think even with the enemy coming in here, that's the stat really still important to Ron Rivera, even if that is a little outdated. So I would go in the 24 range. If I think last year against Jacksonville they scored 27. You would ideally like to score more if Arizona is going to be as bad as everyone thinks, but yeah, that 24 range feels comfortable. I think.
I hope so. And with this defense, I would hope that Arizona isn't able to score 23 points, Matthew. Before we get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handles, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to?
Yeah, sure. You can follow me at Matthew_Paris, Paras. It's spelled like the Pokemon, not the city. So there you
My
go.
man, we all love a good Pokemon slide in there, Matt. Have a great Monday, sir. Enjoy your week.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, we just spoke with the man, Mr. Matthew Paris of the Washington Times. But now we are joined by our next guest, and this is a guy who is not foreign to this podcast. We know him very, very well. As soon as we see his bubbly face when he comes in here, I'm not sure if he's going to be sipping on anything, but we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Anthony Armstrong, obviously the wide receiver from the Redskins. We know all too well. Anthony, how you doing, brother? Is your microphone
You
working
said the
now?
R word.
Man, the other computer, I guess the sound thing kind of zonked out on me. So I don't know, like the volume's not working at all. So I'm in my old setup, which ain't much of a. So you see the new one back there, all
I see
pretty
it.
up.
I see it. I like this setup too, though, Anthony. I get to see more. And honestly, dude, the fact that you rearrange stuff just to be able to come on here is really awesome of you, man. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I apologize for the mishap, but hey, things happen. I will be going in and using my Best Buy membership to the full force to make sure they take care of my stuff.
I got you. And then I'll let you know what's good. I'll send you a DM after this to let you know which one that you should be looking at because I see what you got, what you're rocking there, and I
All
think I
right.
can help you out a little bit. But
All
Anthony, I
right,
want to get your
appreciate it.
opinion on a certain wide receiver on this team, Mr. Diami Brown. I have talked about him a lot in this offseason, having his former college quarterback here as the starter. He has really blossomed in this preseason, and you yourself, you were a deep threat, a lot like Diami was last season, and he has really progressed in the mid game, in my opinion. What have you seen from Diami?
Man, Diame has really found a way to make himself a more well-rounded receiver. Being able to run the intermediate routes and also make the plays down the field. That's what he's here for. But to make sure that you can stay in the game, you got to make sure you're going to be able to be utilized more than a one-trick pony. You don't want to be just the guy that only goes deep and then they peg you as that, and teams know that's what you're going to do. Being able to do a few other things and make an impact here and there is going to be helpful. But shoot, having Sam there is huge. What was it? That game against the Ravens, I think it was. They were really trying to get Diami a touchdown down there in the red zone. And I mean, frankly, Sam forced that ball to him, but Diami made him right. And
Dude,
having that
seriously.
connection, having that trust.
Yeah.
And that was a bad. I mean, you look at it, you're like, that's a bad throw. You shouldn't have thrown this double coverage, but Diami made him right. So
Right.
hey, I can't be mad at it. You just, you got to make sure your guy makes that play for you. And at the end of the day, you're happy with a touchdown. But Diami's really made some strides. He was one of those guys that you kind of had to keep your eye on to see if he was going to take his game up to the next level or if he was going to, backtrack and take a couple steps back and possibly see himself off of the team. But he's strongly entrenched in that fourth receiver spot right now.
Yes, definitely looking for a good breakout season from Diami, like we've all been kind of waiting for, like you said. But speaking of the offense and Sam Howell, throughout the preseason, we kind of saw basically like the shell of the offense as far as like the quick game, the short game, the intermediate stuff. But we all know everyone loves the long ball, everyone loves the deep ball. So do you think that with Terry also possibly being out week one, do you think that they're going to stick to that game plan of the quick game with the offensive line maybe being shaky and the intermediate stuff, or do you think they take their shots down the field with guys like Diami and Dotson?
These first couple of weeks in the season, you don't have a lot of tape to work off of. And frankly, with what Arizona's doing, they may accidentally trip and fall, and let some things happen so that they can guarantee that they lose games. But I think shots will make their way in there. A lot of times they get game plan, that they're one of those things. It's like you have to study tape and see how you can manipulate the defense before you game plan something like that. And I mean, they're going to have some, dialed up here and there. But ultimately, it's going to be about getting into a good rhythm. And if Sam is able to dice that defense up the way he was doing in the preseason, then you will see some shots get thrown in there every now and again because the defense is going to be off kilter. They're not going to know what to expect, and they won't be able to just beat in on one thing, zone in on just short game or running attack. I think there's going to be a good mix. I like the way that EB mixes up his play calling.
Yeah, and then Anthony, our number one wide receiver on this football team, Terry McLaurin, has a possible turf toe injury. One of your possible Redskins, alumni, Mr. Pierre Garcon, we know very fondly that he played with turf toe in the 2012 season. He muscled through it like a G like he was. It did very well. But as a wide receiver, kind of talk about those toe injuries and how difficult it is for Terry McLaurin to be able to play football games with it.
Yeah, I remember way back when the guy who just had a huge weekend, Deion Sanders, had turf toe, and it was when he was with Washington. And I remember I was a young kid, and I was like, turf toe? Psh, that's your big toe. You're fine. And you get older, you realize the big toe is probably one of the more important joints in your whole body. It keeps you upright. Well, having that flexion and being able to bend it is huge to propulsion and running and sprinting at full speed. I've had some turf toe. I got arthritic big toes now. When I run a lot, they get very, very sore. So what Terry's dealing with is where he wants to sprint, he's trying to push off of that big toe. That joint hurts and it's a lot of pain. It's very uncomfortable. And if you jam it and stopping and things like that, all it's going to do is just make it worse. It's going to exacerbate that injury and that soreness. So it's one of those things that's going to be lingering. It's just going to be hanging around all year. Early in the year, you have the opportunity to rest him, give him a little bit more time to heal up and let some of that inflammation die down. I think you take that opportunity. I would love to see 17 on the field, but turf toe and hamstrings, those are like things that really can linger if you don't take good care of them. I think Terry's going to be fine. I think he'll be okay. And there's enough depth at the receiver position that, I'm not going to say you won't miss him, but you at least have some other players that you can step up and throw in and hopefully to get, at least half of the production from him.
Yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, like you said, with what Arizona's doing, I mean, if he has to sit out week one, I would hope that the offense, even though we're missing probably the best player on offense, I would hope that the offense can still function and put up points on a team that looks like they're trying to get Caleb Williams at number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
But seems like every year, obviously at the end of the season, you look back on the season, you're like, oh, that man had a good season. He's like a budding star. He's going to make a name for himself. But if you want to just take into like a bite size of week one, who do you think coming out of week one, fans, people that cover the team, people that watch the team are going to be looking like, okay, if this guy can keep it up, he's due for a big year this year?
Man, my first thought goes into that tight end room, and is it a Cole Turner really, making a name for himself, making a push? I mean, you got an aging Logan Thomas. He's not going to be here forever, but it would be nice to find your next guy inside of your building already, not have to go into the draft, not have to worry about free agency. But I want to see what Cole Turner does. I think that's a name that people want to pay attention to. And you mentioned De'Ami. If there's no Terry, that means there's going to be more reps for De'Ami Brown. I mean, Curtis Samuel, he works in his specific role, but somebody's going to have to line up out there at that X position. And I think it could be a mixture of De'Ami and Byron Pringle. So on the offensive side, those are two guys that I think, people are going to really be trying to pay attention to, because if De'Ami has a big game, it starts to build trust to put him out there more often, and you'll see his role grow throughout the season. So it's important that he gets off to a fast start, and he's going to have opportunities to do that.
And you, obviously, as an offensive player in the NFL, Anthony, who is somebody for Washington's defense looking at Arizona's offense, who is a player that the defense cannot allow to run wild on them this Sunday?
Man, honestly, at this point, it's anybody because there's not that many people left. Like, who's going to be your quarterback? Lord knows it better not be any of the quarterbacks that they line up. I mean, Colt McCoy, they released the OG, unfortunately. So now you're going to have to deal with Clayton Tune or Josh Dobbs. So, neither one of those guys have had a lot of experience. If any of those guys go off, it's in a lot of trouble. But you got to think, James Conner's going to get a lot of action, and Hollywood Brown are going to get some action too. But I think there's enough talented DB to not allow Hollywood Brown to go off, but really maintain that running game. Got to lock that down so you can force the young quarterback to throw the ball to that defense and let Chase Young and the rest of the defensive line go and hunt. So James Conner would be my guy that you do not want to let get going for Arizona.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, outside of Zach Ertz, there's not many well-known, like, name brand guys on that offense that you can really look to and be like, oh, he's going to go off, or you got to work.
Oh.
The Hall freeze up on me.
Yeah, he did freeze up on you. Hey, Anthony, how much time do we have
about
for
him,
you
so.
today?
I think, like you said, defense are good. So, yeah.
So his internet is catching up right now, Anthony. How much time do we have you for today?
We got about another 10 minutes or so.
Okay, cool. Hall, keep going.
All right, I'm good now?
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously it's a new era, week one. You're going to have Magic Johnson out there, Josh Harris, all the new owners, a lot of alumni is going to be up there. It's a sold out for the first time in probably the RG3 years. And you played for this team back when FedEx was rocking, was packed out. And a lot of these players on the team right now haven't really experienced that in their own stadium, like maybe going back to like college, like home games and stuff like that. So how is it going to be for these players that are going to come out week one and see a full stadium of burgundy and gold, and how are they going to have to kind of temper their emotions through those first couple drives?
Man, it's gonna be electric out there. I remember that first game, 2010. We played Dallas. It was Sunday Night Football. That
I was
place
there for
was
that.
jumping. I mean, that was that was
Was
probably
that the
one of the
Tony
more.
Romo game when he threw the interception, but
Yeah,
he threw the touchdown, but it was a holding call?
Yep.
correct. There was that
Yeah,
game,
okay, I
and
remember that game. Yeah.
that place was fire, man. And I mean, you got to think most of these guys went through that 2020 season for playing in front of nobody, right? Training camps had no people. Now the stadium is going to be full. It's going to be jumping. Um, this is what you dream of, right? Coming out, seeing your home stadium packed and just cheering you on. And there's always going to be some nerves at the beginning, man. You want to make a play. You want to be the one to get that crowd going. A lot of times it's just about getting your first catch, getting your first carry, getting your first tackle, get that contact out of the way, and let the nerves settle back down. Because at the end of the day, it's still football. But the big thing is, like I said, Mike, get started early just by making a catch, make the first run, make the first block. Hell, bring the hat to somebody else, and don't just get hit and then be like, oh, okay, yeah, it's football today. Like, bring that energy to somebody else for once, and then the nerves will settle down, and you'll be able to have a good day.
My man. Now to wrap this up, Anthony, I'll have a couple more questions for you. But what are your opinion? What are the strengths and weaknesses of Washington facing against Arizona, and some of their strengths and weaknesses that you're seeing in this matchup on Sunday?
Man, I will be real. I would love to say there's a whole bunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the biggest strength for Arizona is just the fact of the unknown, right? Washington isn't really sure what they're going to get from these guys. Like I said, Josh Dobbs just got there a couple days ago, a week ago
Right.
maybe. He doesn't even know the offense. There's no tape of him running Arizona's offense. And then Clayton Tune's a young guy. What is Jonathan Gannon going to do? They've traded away a lot of star players on defense. They still have Buda Baker, but it's a team where you're going to see a lot of new guys, and that's going to give Arizona a little bit of edge in the beginning because you don't know, you don't have anything on tape for these guys. But overall, I really don't think this should be much of a problem for Washington. You got to think that you're outclassed, or you outclass your opponent pretty much in every position across the field. From just units, one unit to the other, quarterback, running back, receivers, tight ends. I mean, yes, Zach Ertz is a great guy, but everybody else around him is not that good. So let's give Arizona the tight end position. And then on defense, and you're getting rid of star players. And they weren't great last year. Don't really think they're going to want to be awesome this year either. So Arizona's just, it sucks to think about it like this, but they're kind of walking in like a lame duck in my opinion. I think they really want to lay down for the season to set themselves up to try to get Caleb Williams. And this is just week one of the Tank for Caleb brigade. But the big thing is Washington needs to take advantage of this, right?
Yep.
Don't let this be a eerily close game just because. Like, forget that, man.
Right.
21-0. Let's get these guys off the stick quickly. Let FedEx be jumping, and then so they can go to another game. If I'm watching it, they can transfer it to something else. But that's what I want to see from Washington. Just take advantage of this opportunity. Really, really put your pedal to the metal and bring the pain.
Yeah, and you said lame duck. More so lame bird in that sense. I do agree with you, Anthony. Last question I have for you. You almost went there, but what are your predictions for the game this Sunday? Obviously, people would say predictions are stupid, but I really want to know what you think of this football team going into this matchup with as much excitement and energy surrounding it.
Man, I think just with the youth on the Arizona side under center is going to be a big detriment to Arizona, and that defense for Washington is going to be able to get aggressive, get the ball back for their team, probably get a pick or two, maybe force a fumble. I think there's going to be a few sacks. It should be a field day. Should be a field day. I think that it's going to be like a 28-7 or 28-10 type of game. Washington should control this one all the way through. I'm sure EB wants to put on a show to start the year at home. He got Magic Johnson in attendance, new ownership in attendance. He's going to want to put up points. And for him, this is game one of his eventual head coaching audition, right? This is his head coaching audition campaign. And you got to put good things on tape. So 28-10, 28-7, something like that. Easy win for Washington in week one.
That's
I like
seven,
it.
that's 7 or 10 more points than I would be comfortable with, Anthony. I'm not going to lie to you. Anthony, I can't thank you enough for joining us. But before we get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle and your show? So in case anyone watching hasn't followed you yet or the show and would like to.
I appreciate it, Kyle. Check me out on the Believe in Commanders podcast, all your streaming favorite streaming platforms. Believe Commanders on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, but Rated Armstrong, that's where you hit me up over there on Twitter. I guess it's X now, so hit me up on x.com at Rated Armstrong.
My man. Anthony, have a great week, sir. Enjoy the game on Sunday, and just enjoy the festivities, brother. Have a great one.
Yes, indeed. Happy Labor Day.
Appreciate it, man.
Brother. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Anthony Armstrong. It sucks about his microphone because I know he was uncomfortable holding that thing up the whole time. But hopefully Reed will be here soon. Reed's phone is obviously broken, so trying to talk to him through laptop is hard enough as it is. But hopefully he will be here. But let's answer some fan questions to wrap up this episode, brother. This first one is from the Colonel, and it's a great one. It's not often an undrafted free agent makes a 53-man roster, especially at a stacked position like wide receiver. Please comment on Mitchell Tinsley's journey to our squad and what he will contribute.
Yeah, like you said, undrafted free agent, which, I mean, every once in a while, like you said, every year there's a couple of undrafted guys that really, I guess if you want to say, get the spotlight and like making the team because it's such like a crazy journey to get there. But like you said, at a position where it's probably the strength, if not the second best position group on the entire team, with just a loaded group and new offense, new guys coming in like Byron Pringle, who already know the offense, no EB, for him to come in and make the squad. And I think I was listening to him on Grant and Danny like last week. They had him on, and he was talking about he didn't play high school football till his senior year. He was a basketball guy. He said he probably could have made the NBA if he really like stuck with basketball, which is just crazy in itself as well. But yeah, didn't really get any offers out of high school because he only played that 1 year. Had to go the JUCO route. Then he goes to Western Kentucky. Then he balls out there, and then everyone's like, but you're at Western Kentucky. Can you do it at a Power 5?
He had
goes to Penn State,
like 1,400 receiving yards at Western Kentucky.
Exactly. And they were still kind of like questioning him, like, yeah, you're doing it here, but you're not doing it at like the top level in college. So he goes to Penn State, kind of, I don't want to say replaces a guy like Dotson because you can't really replace that much production, but goes there and does his thing at Penn State and becomes like a name in the draft, like you said. And yeah, just great story, great path to get there. And I do honestly think that with him making the 53 this year, I think it's set up for him to actually be maybe wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 going into next year with Curtis Samuel and guys like that kind of maybe moving on due to contract stuff.
Yeah, and to add on to your history of Mitchell Tinsley, which you were spot on, but also given to the fact that going into his draftable year with Penn State, that was his first time with the team. He had to think about 500 to 600 receiving yards, I think probably about 5 to 6 touchdowns, but shows you at Western Kentucky that kind of in the production he had there, whereas going at Penn State, it's not like you're going in as the guy. You got to kind of earn it. And so you could kind of look at that and saying, that is a product that wasn't utilized to its fullest at Penn State. We know the history of Western Kentucky, and adding into this unit here with the wide receivers, that's a great person to have off practice squad because that's somebody who's biting at the bit for that opportunity and is productive once they get on the field. So having him at practice squad is a awesome thing to have, and I think also he could offer you something in special teams as well. If you have a problem with gunner injuries, something like that.
I will say also he's a smart dude because I think he said from college, from like JUCO up to the NFL now, this will be his 7th, or maybe it was just through college, but basically he had like 6 or 7 different offensive coordinators. I think every year of college he had a different offensive coordinator under his belt. So like you said, it just goes that he's a new guy every year. So it just goes to show that he's not just like a guy that can get on the field and is gifted and can run routes, catch balls, but he's also a smart guy that can actually just learn a playbook off the drop of a dime. New guy come in, new offense, learn the playbook at the drop of a dime. So, like I said, I definitely think that if he continues to develop, some guys get cut loose due to contract issues and whatnot, he has the potential to go in there, be wide receiver 4 or 5 at the beginning of next year and maybe elevate his way to the field next year.
Yeah, and Colonel, I did a film breakdown on Tinsley after we had signed him the undrafted free agency. And watching it, you can go to my Twitter at the Burgundy Zone, search Mitchell Tinsley. You should be able to come up with a video feed, the thread that I did on his film breakdown. The one thing about Tinsley, he reminds you a lot of Terry McLaurin, where he's not going to have the separation like of Jahan Dotson with his route running, but it's a scrappy dude. He's going to get free. He is very important in crucial third down situations. In that video thread I have on Twitter, you'll see that all of the catches that I highlight are third and longs because they went to him. He was dependable. That was the sure-handed guy that they would go to in those crucial situations that they needed help on, and that's what you could kind of rely on with Tinsley. He's a deep target field. He's going to control his body, having the basketball background in those contested catch situations. He's got sticky hands, and you know he's going to win the fight there because of that basketball athletic background. A perfect piece to have on your practice squad, in my opinion, with having such a stacked wide receiver roster. Now, the next question that we have is from Canada Mike on Twitter. This is kind of a split, funny one, but he asks, who of the 3 English guys coming to opening day is your favorite and why? Scouse, Hartley, or Prime Minister Burrows?
Aw, man, I can't just pick one.
I'll pick one. I'll say it's Hartley because he's the best pool player out of all 3 of you.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm joking.
Look,
And he's gonna get
that's my seat buddy, man. Even though we missed the seat buddy thing a couple years back when y'all were supposed to come over because of the whole COVID issues, but that's my seat buddy guy. So if I got to pick, I got to go Scott. Nah, I'm just joking.
My man, you know I love Burrows. He was my day one. Same with you, Lockhart. You know I love you guys. We're excited to see you guys this weekend. Section 305 at the game.
Pints.
It's sold out. Like even the standing room. I mean, this is going to be awesome. I'm really excited to see it. Now the next question on Twitter from Scott Hartley, our seat buddy guy. Oi! From the UK. What are you most looking forward to game day? Is it catching up, a specific position group, seeing the offense, or anything else?
Yeah, just seeing everybody out of the field. I think that it's been a while since I've been to a game. I'd probably say 16, the Sunday Night Football game, or 15, whatever it was, when Kirk Cousins went ham on the Packers. We just demolished them. And, that was the last time I was actually at a game where it was a whole bunch of burgundy and gold, and obviously the Packers travel well, but there was more burgundy and gold, and just a good time, good vibes. Tailgating is always fun, but just a good time. And I think that that's what I'm most looking forward to, just the good vibes and everything, just seeing all the burgundy and gold in the stands, then obviously catching up with everybody and seeing everybody again. And yeah.
Yeah, now I specifically remember we had our Drunkies Facebook group, our show that we had, and you had done the pre-show for that game with 2 Packers fans, and they were very confident heading into that game. Obviously, I don't think the Cardinals fans are going to be going into this game with that same sort of mentality here, but it just shows you how times have changed. Now, for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing how everyone is laid out because, I've been going to games for a very long time, right? I was there for that Trent Williams introduction to the NFL, that Sunday night opener that Anthony was talking about in that game. I was there for that. I'm excited to see what a real sold-out FedEx Field full of excitement without Dan Snyder is. And I'm really, really excited to be able to see that, but also being able to see you guys. You guys came over last season, Scott, but we weren't able to sit with you. You sat at the other end, right? This time, finally, we're going to be able to sit together in Section 305 and just go crazy and just scream our heads off. I'm really excited for all of us not to be able to say anything on Monday morning because our voices are completely shot. But I will also say I think this is a big, big opportunity for the defense. I think that the defense historically in the recent history has come out slow, methodical, allowed themselves to be carved up in a way. They come in with the same structure they did the year before. I understand that I respect Jack Del Rio and the way he calls defense, and I'm not going to say he should change anything. I just want the defense to have the strength, the confidence to say it doesn't matter what we're in, we're whooping your ass and we're better than you, because at this point I think that Washington, where we are, our expectation should be to smother this team. And that's what should be expected of them because that's where they are at this point. We're not going down. We're going up, and this is the expectation from now on. I don't want them to score a single point, man, in my personal opinion. Thank you, Scott. Now the next question from Hunter Rose on Twitter. How good will the defense be this season? Maintaining defenses year over year doesn't happen under JDR. Oh, did you freeze? I'm not sure about maintaining. I just kind of talked about it, Hunter, with Jack Del Rio. It's like he comes in, he has a certain structure to his team and how he calls his defense, where he's going to sit back in that zone. He's not going to throw that dangerous gamble on 3rd and long, right? Like on 3rd and long, he's going to sit in that cover 3, or he's going to do a cover 2 man, and he's going to be safe about it. He's not going to do anything crazy, and that's why it's easy for teams to kind of carve up offensive plays in order to hit those weak spots in the zone. But the whole point of Jack Del Rio's tenure as defensive coordinator is not allowing anything big, long. And that miscommunication that was happening early on last season with William Jackson III in the lineup and without Cam Curl was really a big thorn in the backside of this football team. And obviously that can't happen again. So my expectation for this defense is that they are going to be even better than they were last season. I think adding Emmanuel Forbes was absolutely the most crucial part of this offseason on top of adding Eric Bieniemy. Getting that playmaking ability at that cornerback position. Last season, at the end of last season, we were kind of looking at, I know I said in January, I'm really hoping that they get a lockdown playmaking corner in this draft class. I wanted a guy like J.C. Horn, and that's exactly what they went and got in Emmanuel Forbes. We can cry about his weight all they want, but all I care about is his length, dude. Pause. Giggity. But honestly, that's all I care about, Hunter. And I think this defense is set up for success with having 2 of their edge rushers being in contract years, meaning they're motivated to make big numbers happen. I think that we're in a very good position. Now, the next question that we have is from Walt D-Bub on Twitter. Oh, my bad. I got the wrong one. Let's move to our Discord chat server where we have our pinned questions here. This one's submitted from Big Tony Shivers. Thank you, Tone. Who on the Arizona defense does Bieniemy need to account for? For the defense, I will say Zaven Collins. I talked a lot of crap on Twitter the other day saying that I was not concerned about Zaven Collins as an edge defender. But I take that back. I went back to my notes on my pre-draft breakdown of Zaven Collins, and I said, look, if he doesn't work out as a Mike kind of off-the-ball linebacker, you can always slide him in as an edge rusher and just have him rush the quarterback more predominantly, and he'd be very effective at doing that, and I do expect that wholeheartedly. He's like 6'4", 6'5", and a massive athlete. I kind of could see him as like a Brian Urlacher-esque type of linebacker, where that's why I looked at him coming out of that draft, where if you float him in that cover Tampa cover 2 in the middle of the field, that big, tall kind of body, it's going to make it hard for quarterbacks to hit those weaknesses there. But as an edge defender, I think he is somebody to keep an eye on. Obviously, Budda Baker is somebody you want to is going to get the popularity. It's probably the biggest name on Arizona besides Kyler Murray that you could say at this point. But I think that Zaven Collins is the guy you want to pay attention to, especially with this offensive line, given their history and the question marks heading into this game. I think Zaven Collins is the guy you want to really keep an eye on, who most likely is going to be rushing over Andrew Wiley on the right side, who is now predominantly an edge rusher. The next question in our Discord chat server from Tim Towner. Thank you, Tim. Have watched my fair share of college football this week, and there have been tons of big plays made by one team, which usually resulted from bad plays being made by the other team. What are some areas on offense, defense, and special teams that you want to see Washington show some improvement in, if not consistency, completion percentage, red zone, third downs, turnovers, etc.? For me personally, Tim, it's third downs. That is what all I care about with this offense. I mean, obviously, red zone is going to be the most important, and I did a report on the BurgundyZone.com. It no longer is active. But what I did it after our bye week 2 seasons ago. And I said, look, if you want to be able to get a better win these football games, you have to be able to improve your running yards per carry. And that is going to translate into points scored, which is going to help you in the red zone because they were bottom 5 in the red zone last season. So I think third down percentage is very, very important in being able to extend the chains. This defense for far too long has been having to hold the weight of an offense for 4 quarters just for the offense to put up some points for them to win. And by the time it gets that third quarter, their back breaks and they allow some points and then the game's out of the whack, right? And so for me personally, it's the third down conversions. It's the red zone conversions. That is what Eric Bieniemy was brought here for. Kansas City, obviously, they have Pat Mahomes and Kelsey. We don't have those guys, obviously, but they were number 1 in the red zone last season on offense, and that's what I expect out of this. I'm not expecting them to be number 1. Just expect improvement and consistency on third downs and red zone for this offense. Hall, sorry, I know that your internet kind of went out there, but Tim Towner asked, he has watched his fair share of college football this week, and there have been tons of big plays made by one team, which usually resulted from bad plays being made by the other team. What are some areas on offense, defense, and special teams that you want to see Washington show some improvement in, if not consistency? Completion percentage, red zone, third downs, turnovers, etc.
Like you said, in the title of the episode, come out and start fast.
Right.
Usually you see especially the defensive backs on the back end the last couple of years or first couple of games, the communication has just been horrible. Guys out of place, guys um, in the wrong coverage, supposed to be playing man or supposed to be playing cover two, and they're playing cover three, or supposed to be playing some type of quarters defense, and they're playing man, and guys are running and open, like wide open down the field. So that's one thing on defense I want to see. I want to see the defensive backs communicate better and have great communication, and I don't want to see any blown coverages and guys just running down the field wide open like they have been a couple times here and there over the past couple of years, the first quarter of the season. Offensively, I came in the back end of what you were talking about, but I'd have to agree on the third downs and the red zone stuff. I think that able to start fast, you're going to have to come out and basically just, like Anthony Armstrong said, just take it to them in the first quarter. Offense come out, put the pressure on them, put points on the board. And I think that it'll help the defense out, obviously. And with this offense playing, with this team playing with a lead, and this defense, the guys up front, the guys that the way that Del Rio is going to scheme guys up, and just the guys up front being able to win their one-on-ones, I think that playing with a league and then getting a team like the Arizona Cardinals in consistent passing situations early on will basically just demoralize them, flatten them out, and that'll lead to a better team and a better win week one. But yeah, if I would have to say third down and red zone stuff, and I do think the red zone stuff will be better just with a simple fact that you're going to see more creativity in the red zone as far as a lot of like crossers, a lot of mesh stuff, a lot of like pick plays like you see in Kansas City in that Andy Reid offense. So
I wouldn't even say it being creativity. I think it would more so be about common sense.
And more just execution. I'd say execution as well.
It's true.
But I mean, just like I'd say creativity because of spacing. I feel like the spacing in this offense is a lot more creative as opposed to Scott Turner, where it was you'd constantly see Logan Thomas and Terry McLaurin in the same 2-3 yard vicinity, which obviously is going to bring more defenders. But yeah, I think that like you said, third down and red zone stuff, I want to see that be more consistent and just at a higher clip percentage wise.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I heard that Kansas City fans say that he had heard that Eric Bieniemy called the plays in the second half in the Super Bowl. So I went back and I looked, and I'm really intrigued to see if that is true or not, because the plays I specifically saw in the second half, it's going to be a lot of fun for this football team, the way that it is structured. I am going to say that right now. While your internet was crapping out, I answered a question from Big Tony Shivers. Want to get your opinion real quick. Who on the Arizona defense does Bieniemy need to account for?
Oh, man. Like we said earlier with Anthony, there's not a lot of household names and big name guys. I would say Isaiah Simmons, but they traded him to New York. So we're going to have to see him twice a year coming up anyway. But I mean, really the only person I can think of on the top of my head, obviously you got to see where Buda Baker's at, because with a young quarterback, he can like maybe try to disguise some coverages and play. He's obviously a playmaker on the back end, gets a lot of interceptions, makes a lot of plays on the ball, but he's also a smart player. Like I said, they can kind of disguise something and show Sam Howell one thing pre-snap and go to another and maybe disrupt a play or two. But between him and Zay Collins, I think those are really the only two guys. But I would really more worried about Zay Collins just because the offensive line is a question mark, if you want to call that, coming into the game. And the easiest way to mess up an offense and kind of disrupt things is a good pass rusher messing up things. And if Zay Collins gets going, he could maybe disrupt some things. But
that's exactly
again, I think that this offensive line can mostly handle a guy like Zay Collins because he's not elite. He's just, a little bit above average of that. So I think, like I said, I think this will be a nice gelling situation for the offensive line to kind of build some confidence and kind of look forward to a tough pass rush into week 2 with Denver.
Now the next question is from Deluxe in our Discord chat server. Curtis Samuel question: have they been hiding his role through vanilla play calling?
Yes. Trust me, a lot of people have been asking me, like messaging me, and like just random people at work that I see. They're like, hey, like y'all always talk about these receivers, and like, yeah, they like Dotson gets all the talk and McLaurin gets all the talk, but like even De'Ami Brown's getting more run and more talk about this offseason than Curtis Samuel. And then my only answer was look back to 2018 or Was that Terry's rookie year, 2018?
Terry's rookie year,
Yeah,
2019.
2019. Look back 2019. You didn't hear much about Terry McLaurin. You didn't see him in the preseason because Jay Gruden was like, "Yeah, this dude's about to be a baller. Let
I
me keep
said
him
that
off
in
the
that
field."
preseason
I
too.
know, I remember, and that's why I'm thinking back, and I'm like, we know how creative that Andy Reid is, and by kind of default, Eric Bieniemy is just being there for so long, kind of running the same center of the offense with Eric Bieniemy's twist on it. I do think that because, like you said, it's preseason, you're only seeing like the basic core, kind of like the shell of the offense. I think once they get down to the nitty gritty, into the weeds, and into the all the different stuff the offense can do and can be, I think you're going to see Curtis Samuel lined up all over the field. I think you might see some wildcat stuff with Curtis Samuel week one, and I definitely think that, like Anthony Armstrong said, Eric Bieniemy is going to try to put on a show and showcase to people like, this is I'm here, kind of like Deion Sanders. I'm here. This is what I'm about, and this is what this offense is going to be about. And this is only the beginning. So I definitely think that Curtis Samuel is going to have a big role. I don't know if it'll be week one exactly, but I do think he'll have a big role in this offense. And they've definitely been kind of hiding him to expose him and show him come this season.
Yeah, look, Deluxe, let's look back to the Super Bowl last season. Like Sky Moore, that one motion that he had, right? He comes in and then bubbles back out, right? Curtis Samuel is perfect for that. The reason why they set that up is the play before that, they had sent Sky Moore in motion around behind Patrick Mahomes in a jet motion all the way across. So what was happening is the Philly defenders, as soon as they saw that motion, they would push it off to somebody else. As soon as they pushed it off, that receiver would turn back around outside and it was wide open. Nobody else was there. That kind of situation is what you expect with Curtis Samuel, is what Scott Turner was supposed to do with Curtis Samuel last season. Use that jet motion to your advantage because they are expecting it. You cannot allow the jet motion to continue going to one side because guess what? They know on the opposite side that he's lining up is most likely where he's going to go. And so you have to be smart in this sort of sense. And that's why I think Eric Bieniemy is crucial to it. And we haven't seen anything that they're going to show yet. Everything that you see, all you guys out there are well aware of it, is just structured, simple, nonchalant, day one stuff that they need to be able to see in those situations what you can do based on what they want to ask you to do. And obviously these are the sessions that they're doing alone.
Right. And I'll say that a lot of what they want to do as far as like not really exposing the offensive line and with the quick game and getting the ball out quickly. We all know the screen game is going to be utilized super heavily in this offense where all that stuff benefits Curtis Samuel. He's a guy that can get the ball in space and make people miss, break tackles, get down the field really quickly using his agility and his quickness. That bodes well for the screen game. That bodes well for the quick game and whatnot. So I definitely think that Curtis Samuel, like you said, they've been hiding him, and I think that he's about to be unleashed week one, and you're going to see him all over the field, and he'll have somewhere probably between, especially if Terry doesn't play, I'd say between 5 to 8 touches, and then they'll be for a significant amount of yardage.
Yeah, with Curtis Samuel in particular, I wouldn't expect a crazy amount of targets, but when he does get targeted, expect them to be for big production type of plays, big splash plays, putting him out in space, allowing him to be able to navigate and get upfield. More so last season, you saw him as like a third down kind of guy where it was his jump ball situations to kind of taking him out of his element. Where if you go back to when we played Carolina at FedEx with Curtis Samuels on the Panthers, remember he was utilized on that wide receiver screen and really did some damage against us. That's the kind of situation you want Curtis to be in. Put him in space, allow him to navigate and see the field and run through it.
And then you remember that, if you remember that game as well, he was killing us with the quick game and the screen game. And once the defense kind of like, all right, we got to get up close on him and play him tight, that's when he started killing us down the field and the intermediate stuff as well. So, like you said, I definitely think he's going to be a crucial piece. And I think a guy like Eric Bieniemy, like you said, Scott Turner was supposed to use him this way. I think Eric Bieniemy is going to get the most out of what we want Curtis Samuel to be.
Yeah, and I think Scott Turner has some excuses, obviously, but obviously we don't need to go back there. Last question of the episode from Tony Franchise in the Discord. Thank you, Tony. What are realistic expectations for this team this season?
I would say, look, it's a rookie, or basically a rookie starting quarterback. A new OC, pretty much new offensive line rebuilt. But my expectations are, like, I know I've said from the get-go, like, I'm not going to get my expectations up anymore because last year really just, like, I knew the possibilities of like what it could be. I just didn't think it was going to be that bad with Carson because I feel like I set my expectations too high because I was like, we just get Colts Carson, we'll be all right. And we got last year at Philadelphia Carson, but
I knew it after he responded to me at training camp. I knew something wrong.
yeah. But yeah, my expectations for this team as a whole is minimum of 9 wins. I think that's good enough to get the 7th seed in the NFC playoffs. Just because if the NFC was like the AFC, then I would be like, look, just hover around 500. If you make the playoffs, cool, because it's a murderer's row of quarterbacks and teams out in the AFC. The NFC is the weaker of the two conferences. Obviously, the quarterback play compared to the AFC is weaker. It's primed for this team to exceed people's expectations because of a 5th-round quarterback and a poor offensive line in people's minds. So I think that 9 wins is the minimum they need to do. That's my minimum expectations. 9 wins, a playoff berth, and I would love to see a playoff win, but I'm not going to put that much expectations. But I would say if you make the playoffs, I expect you to get in and make some noise. So I say 9 wins minimum, and you got to win the playoff game.
I would
or
say
at least keep it close in the playoffs.
Realistic expectations for this team is to be able to compete with everyone that's on their schedule. Even the Buffalo Bills, guys like that. Adding Eric Bieniemy in here is the last kind of the Thanos, whatever jewel thing, whatever thing. Getting that, powering up the
Infinity
glove,
Stone.
the Infinity Stone. That's the Commanders lighting up with Eric Bieniemy being added here, and Sam Howell's like, and so they can compete with anybody. But I think that we do have to be realistic that there's going to be issues. There are going to be problems that come up. Nothing is going to be perfect. We don't live in a perfect world, obviously, so there's going to be problems to arise. And I think that the way that my conspiracy mind goes, that the defense is probably going to take a step back. Not a far one, but just a little bit of a step back. And what's going to have to happen is the offense is going to have to produce more points, more so than we have expected in years past. Just the way that life works about balance. You added so much offensively. Maybe you do lose a little something in the back end, and nobody knows what could possibly happen. But that being said, with these defensive coordinators, with the talent that they do have on this football team, they should be able to compete with everybody, and they should win a playoff game. And that is my personal opinion. The NFC is wide open. I don't care what anyone says. It is. The Eagles are not as good as advertised they were last year. I know I disrespected them. I know I disrespected the Giants. I hate all of them. I still do. I disrespect the hell out of them. The Commanders win the East. We're going to win a playoff game. Those are realistic expectations for me. All right, everybody. Thank you, Tony. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. Thank you to Anthony Armstrong for working that out with us. Thank you to Matthew Paris of the Washington Times of being able to talk about this game coming up. We will be back on Thursday. Looks like Reed was not able to join us, but it's all good. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a great, safe week. Enjoy this Labor Day. We'll see you then. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you guys on Thursday. Washington football. Woo!
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!